1.
Morning, I'm Trevor Stringer. I'm the chair of the Big Skill, and I'm here at the beautiful gardens in Saxon Hall. I want to introduce our new project called Camera in the Community. The lockdown has affected people very differently. For many it's been a traumatic experience, and for many they're still suffering, still locked down, and we wanted to record how it's affected people, make sure that the community is aware of all the trials, tribulations people have been through. Some have found positive things out of it, and we wanted it to be make a journal and video of it that people can say, I was part of this project that recorded how our community was affected and how our community responded, and things that we hope will come out of it for the better in the future. We've got various projects going on at the moment. We've got a sculpture project, and that's like a non-verbal way that people can express how they've actually coped with it, and it's part of our Remember and Rebuild project.
I think obviously I understand why we had to do lockdown. For me, it was really difficult. I have my own business, so I work full time, and then all of a sudden having no childcare, and I had no family support, and who I did have come under the vulnerable category, so I couldn't have my mum to help me, or other people in the family. So managing schoolwork and full-time work for months on end, definitely my mental health and physical health got massively affected, because I wasn't sleeping. I just wasn't having time to sleep and rest.
It's been quite difficult from the beginning, because a lot of people won't know, and some do know. Close friends know that I'm recovering from cancer. Yeah. And thank goodness for the community nurses in Hereford. A big thank you to them that's got me through all this, and also to the government that sent the food parcels that kept me on my tins of soup and beans and goodness knows what, and to my friends who kept me positive all the way through. Also thanks to this group that we've done some crafts at home that we took home and made face masks and various things. And today, where we're coming to make our Christmas stars, ready for the Christmas, and have a bit of home full cheer with our friends, and thanks once again.
It's been like hell, really. I've lost my dad, I lost my uncle, I lost my best friend.
Yeah, those who used to come here.
Yeah. I've not really come out. I don't do very much now.
Yeah.
Just didn't want to do anything, and then I thought I can't just stay in the house, because I'm going to make myself worse.
Yeah.
And I just thought I've got to do something. So I started knitting for Christmas and things like that. Just that's all I do. That's all I've done is knit.
Yeah.
Just to keep me going. I'm starting to come out a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
Took me a long time to come out.
The main impact was all the workshops being cancelled.
Yeah.
So they're one of my sort of main income streams, really.
Yeah.
So that was quite a big, devastating effect, thinking, okay, what do we do now? I also run the gallery in Crickhowell, that's member based, so every member takes turns stewarding.
Yeah.
But obviously that had to close as well. So that was another sort of income stream gone for people that I sort of look after at the gallery as well. So I really tried to push the website and the social media side of things to see that we could still raise our profile, point people at other people's websites, see if people wanted to buy things online because they can't do in person. And one effect was that my needle felting kits just took off. So I had lots and lots and lots of orders for those because people were stuck at home.
Well?
Yeah, I think people wanted to do things and fill their time, didn't they?
Yes.
So everybody got really creative over lockdown, which then sort of turned things around a bit because the kits took off. So that was a little bit of a relief. And then at the same time, I was offered the post of director at the Blythra Arts Centre.
Yeah.
And they couldn't furlough me because I hadn't been there long enough. So I worked through lockdown, reorganising the centre, sort of keeping the good bits, tweaking the bits that perhaps hadn't worked so well, and getting a new website up and running so that people could interact online even if they couldn't in person. So so it turned out to be quite busy in the end.
Great.
Yeah.
And we're actually going to have our Big Skill Craft Festival there
Midsummer Crafts Festival for the Big Skill. I think it's a good venue for the Big Skill because it's got so much room.
Yeah, it's an excellent venue.
Yeah. Loads of different types of spaces to fill.
And how's life been sort of at home besides work? What's that been like?
Okay, thankfully.
You had a big birthday, didn't you?
I did, and well, that I was worried that I wouldn't be able to have a party that I planned. But lockdown sort of eased just before, and we were allowed to have bigger groups outside. So I ended up.
At that time, you wouldn't now.
Yeah. So I managed to get my birthday in the right time at the end of July. I've got 3 daughters, but 2 have left home, so I've got 1 with me.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we get on okay because obviously we were just in the house together and taking our dog. We had a new dog just before lockdown, a rescue dog. So we went on quite a lot of walks, which I think lots of people were doing. I think dogs have had their legs walked off over lockdown. So yeah, it's been. I was describing it to Rebecca, who's the clay workshop tutor. It's kind of like it was almost like a parallel universe because life was sort of continuing exactly the same. You had to buy food, you had to cook, you had to entertain your children, and yet it was completely different because you had to plan everything. Like where you do things spontaneously, thinking, I'll just run to the shops or I'll just go and see Auntie Sue or whatever. Suddenly everything had to be planned. So yeah, it was weird. It was like life was continuing as normal, but also not. And actually for the first 2 months I didn't actually make or create anything. I'm usually busy making stuff for my art, and I didn't do any making for 2 months. I went in the garden and sat and processed things, I think, but I didn't really make, which was unusual for me.
Yeah.
So it sort of affected me that way as well.
If I look about how the lockdown has affected me, I've been one of the lucky ones. I was able to go swimming in the River Wye most days of the week. I've got a nice little garden able to sit out on. I enjoy cycling most days, going out with my dog. Did miss my family down in Devon, obviously, but basically it's treated me quite well. Joined a creative writing group where we all wrote a paragraph in turn, and we published a book 2 weeks ago. I published my own writing, a book last week. I wouldn't say either of the books are great, but there's something that we're proud to do that sort of they actually say this is what we've done under the lockdown, this is how we coped with it, and this is from most of us have not suffered like there's quite a few people I know have suffered a lot more than that.
Well, it's been very quiet, very uneventful, because I've been ill as well, so I haven't really been up to doing anything. So I've just stayed in and knitted, crocheted, embroidered. Yes, I did, yeah. I had to shield.
Yeah.
Because I was classed as vulnerable.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what sort of things? I saw some things you crocheted, which I don't think we'll share. But
I crocheted a blanket as well.
Yeah.
So I had a load of wool that I hadn't used.
Yeah.
This is really thin, nobody wants to use it. So I set a challenge of using all this really thin wool. And then I thought I'd do squares for a blanket so that when I went for appointments and things, hospital appointments, I could take it and just crochet a square while I was out. and then I finally assembled them all. So I've got myself a nice blanket now. But I wasn't able to walk my dog or anything really. My partner had to do that. Yeah. But his work dried up as well, so that wasn't really a problem.
Yeah.
'Cause he's a plasterer,
Right.
and the factory that makes the plaster shut down. Yeah.
Is it back
So-
work now?
Very bitty.
Yeah.
A £7 bag of plaster was going for £70, and it's still absolutely ridiculous now. You can get it, but it's really expensive or it's out of date.
Yeah.
And you've got to order it a month in advance, or you've got to buy like 100 bags or something, So it makes it quite difficult for work. And then a lot of people don't want a stranger in their house. So the odd jobs he's had has been in an empty property. So but he means he's been able to wait on me hand, foot and finger, which has been good. Yeah.
And did you say this is your first time out today?
It's my first time out that isn't a hospital appointment. Yeah, I've missed it. Yeah, I've seen a few things that I would have gone to. Of course, when I was ill, I was thinking of all the things I would do when I was better, but then COVID's kind of knocked that on the head, really.
Can I ask you what it's been like since lockdown?
I've been managing.
How have you been managing? Because when I first met you, you were talking about you made cards.
Yeah,
Are you still doing that?
Yes, I like to make cards.
Do you? And is that so? You made more during lockdown than normal, did you? How would you sell them?
Well, we're going to have a sale, and I need some help with that.
In actually selling them?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what have you been doing during lockdown? What's life been like for you?
It's been a bit difficult, but I'm getting through that.
Yeah. How has it been difficult? Tell me.
Well, to make cards, to make greetings cards is really what I want to do, and to make a bit of money.
Right. So I got the impression that what you wanted and what's not been able for you to do is to actually go to a weekly class that we used to have here in the Accessible Craft Room.
I do need.
And you wanted to help in actually putting your cards together.
Yes.
Yeah. So have you always been? Tell me what you've done in the past. And have you always been making cards, or this is just a new thing since lockdown?
It's only recently that
during lockdown.
Yes.
Well, what did you do before, Jeremy?
Some time ago, I helped clean aeroplanes at Shobden Airfield.
Did you? Did
Yeah.
you? Wow.
And I really enjoyed that.
I bet you did.
To start with, I was decorating the house and sorting things out like
Yeah.
a lot of people were, and that was really enjoyable actually.
Was it? Yeah.
Not that I wish lots of people to be ill, but
Yeah.
It gave me time to do that,
Yeah.
and I managed to do quite a lot. There's still some left to do.
Yeah.
But then, because I do market research and I'm normally knocking on doors or in the street or in shops, some phone work came up, so I've been busy doing some of that. I've had quite a lot of companies approach me to do that, so
Is it? Yeah.
yeah, and that is good actually, because it keeps my brain going.
Yeah.
And I've been exercising in the house or running around the garden, and watching the quizzes on the telly when I can. I've got 6 cats, so it's like having little children in the house. And I cook for my son every day.
Yes.
So I'm quite busy really, which I enjoy. I don't like being
Yeah.
stagnant,
Did you find it lonely when the lockdown was on?
Not at all. I'm not that sort of person, and I take in lodgers as well. So I've got people in the house, and there's always something going on, So.
How did they find it?
Well, they were still working because they make coffin parts.
Oh,
So
right.
I know
Yeah.
it, but it didn't stop.
Yeah.
They just.
Yeah.
In fact, they were doing overtime during
Were
that
they?
that
Yeah.
time. Yes.
It's been hard. I think it's been hard for everybody. My husband, who worked at Tesco's, so he was working all the time. He was one of us who had to work, you know. So in that respect, like people said, "Oh, what have you been doing?" And you've heard people, "Oh, I've done my garden, I've done my decorating." But for us, it didn't make any difference because he was continuing at work, and I can't do all that sort of thing. So I got me knitting out, and not very often I knit myself a cardigan. I knit, you know, kids' cardigans and that.
Yeah.
But I'm knitting one myself. I said to Margaret, I'm knitting one myself, for myself, and I've got a sleeve to do and the buttons, and then I'll have done that. And I started that in the lockdown.
Yeah.
I'm trying myself at the moment to get my other group that I run an over 60s club every Monday, and
What, down here? Or?
no, at Belmont Community Centre.
Yeah.
At Belmont Community, so it's under the, I think we're all under the same umbrella, aren't we?
Yeah.
And I run that one once a month on a Monday.
Yeah.
And I've been quite worried for my old ladies, let's call them, like a lot of them are on their own and, you know, vulnerable in that way.
Yeah.
And of course, because they're all definitely over 60, some of them are very crucially shielding. You know, I've got members that are over 80.
Have you?
Yes, and so, you know, they're definitely come under the shielding side of it.
Yeah.
I haven't, because I don't like to be nosy. I've left all the books with all their telephone numbers somewhere else, and I can't get hold of them to ring. I know a couple of the numbers to be able to phone a couple of them, but I can't phone all of them because I don't know their telephone numbers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've been worried on that way, but I have seen a couple of them since, you know, all starting to come out of lockdown a bit, but I have worried about those. I spoke to a lady there, Lindsay, and I've got to go and have a meeting with her for how we're going to be sat round. I don't think it'll make a lot of difference because they've got tables like this, and I'd be able to sit one either end and do. We just might need more tables out to do it. But yes, and we can stop them going in the kitchen, you know, and because they have a cup of tea and a piece of cake, whatever, with it. You know, that's the side we've got to look at, and I'm hoping we can come back as some sort on them. But like I say, it just depends how this COVID is going to be. We could be locked all down again, couldn't we? So, yeah. But something like this is what keeps me sane for my activity. And I like learning something new. Because I used to run a craft club. Some of the members that are in this, they were in the craft club as well.
Yeah, it's hard to get used to having everyone at home. Difficult for Ellie not to be at school. So hence I asked a friend I'd helped with getting milk if she knew of anyone who had a dog, and she said, I've got a dog, so we've now got a Labrador, which is a big difference, which meant we did do sort of family walks together a lot more. Really missed the groups, and it's a bit of just being here. I can't remember how many days before lockdown was, but we'd just been doing the sewing group and loads of people in the room, and then weren't allowed to be in even this large hall we're in now. Everything was stopped, which was difficult. But through the big skill, I did some videos for the first with the online agricultural show, which was, I had a deadline. I'd never done it before, and I tried to fulfil the brief it was given me, which is a big learning curve, but it did give me quite a good focus to learn a new skill. And well, I had the craft skill, but I didn't have the video editing skill. That's my learning part, and making the kits as well. And the people that I talked to and either delivered them by hand or posted them, they really grateful for it, and to have something to do, and almost just to be thought of as a creative person that could manage to do it in their own home. And I think everyone needs something.
The start of it was like, what's going on? Why we've been like in prison. It felt like in prison, and not having that kind of fresh air, couldn't go out. Luckily our government says you can go out for fresh air, but only for 2 minutes. So yeah, you couldn't go out for much for a period.
So for that, did you do much?
I did loads of bookmarks. So this came from the Unlocked Lives project. The project was for people with learning disabilities through the pandemic of COVID-19. When it first started, they said, we would like you to do some filming for us. What did you do in lockdown? So doing like bookmarks, doing other stuff, then like cooking. She said, well, we would like to hear more about it. But I do bookmarks, and they were really keen of me doing bookmarks. So I can show you it.
Yeah, please.
Since the first lockdown, I've been doing bookmarks for Volunteer Bureau in Brecon. Then I did them for the town council. So basically, it's the cardboard is from the inside of the washing powder.
Is it?
Yeah. So recycling the washing powder.
Yeah.
And the bookmarks is just weaving, and this is what it comes into like. So it goes from that to that. So since lockdown, I've been working with Tenvers, and now I've been doing bookmarks for them. I've been going out a bit more.
Malin's my youngest son,
Yeah.
and he has autism. We live in Bull. I'm a full-time carer and mum.
Yeah.
And when I can, a little bit of an artist on the side. Lockdown, well, it's like the stuff of films, really, wasn't it? It was like watching a movie happen, you know, the beginnings of it. My mum at the time was fighting cancer, and she was having chemo. And as the pandemic got worse and worse, obviously she sort of self-isolated because she was having chemo. She had to sort of protect herself.
So were you able to visit her?
Yeah, so the way that we did it is that we've got 3 autistic boys.
Right, yeah.
And so essentially we were in our little bubble in Bull. My mum was in her flat because she was having the chemo, and it was me that was the carer going and taking her to hospital to have the chemo.
Yeah.
And then she was due to have another round in March when the lockdown first started, and she had her appointment with the hospital, which I took her to, and then they told her there and then that sorry, we can't give you your chemo because it's too much of a risk to come into hospital. No. And they just sort of sent us home within, we were there about 6 minutes, and they just sent her home without it. So for the first few weeks, she was on her own in her flat in Crickcowell. And my eldest son, who also has autism, my mum and him have a very close bond. He always used to stay with my mum on a Friday. And even in the lockdown, she was adamant that if anything happened with her health, she didn't want to be sent to hospital. Because she knew that how it would pan out. That she wouldn't be able to have a family around her.
It must be terrible, that was.
And she made me swear not to let anybody interfere with that wish of hers. So my eldest son, who was very close to her, she insisted she still wanted to have him come stay with her. So we were bubbling in our family, she was bubbling, and I was transferring Rowan back and forth on a Friday and taking her shopping, and disinfecting it all and all of that. So then that carried on for a couple of months, and then in May, then she, when Rowan was staying with her, she fell, and because she's so weak, she fell and hit her head, and Rowan just tried to pick her up and everything.
Oh, Anna, I'm sorry.
Sorry. And he's, even though he's got a mobile phone and everything, I drummed it into him always. If there was an emergency, had to ring me. So and he'd never done it before. You know, he's autistic, he'd never done it before.
Gee.
And he rang me and I just went and picked her up and I put her in my car and brought her home. And you know, she didn't want to go to hospital, but she stayed with me, luckily. And so she had her boys around her when she went, you know.
Good.
She was with her family, which is what she wanted.
A lot better than being stuck in hospital on your own.
So we had all that going on when lockdown first started. So it was difficult because I'm a carer anyway, but, you know, when you don't expect, like, your mum to die in those circumstances. So it was really just, it was just even arranging things like then the doctor to come out and the funeral home to come and pick her up and things like that. Nobody was available.
Oh, really?
So, like, you know, it was just a long time waiting for people to come and help afterwards and things like that. And obviously we had the funeral and nobody was allowed to come, and, you know, I think we had 9 people. But I would say it was the best funeral.
Was it? Was it?
It was amazing because I think I just sort of threw myself into it to try and, you know, to try and do the best that you could in such limited constraints. We had an unconventional funeral. We didn't have a celebrant or anybody who didn't know my mum. So in the end, what we ended up doing was, because my mum was...
Was it a humanist one?
No, I did it.
Oh,
so,
right.
So I talked about her. And because she was creative, like, she used to write as well. So she wrote a story once for my first son when he was born, and it was a beautiful little story. So Rowan read that out at the funeral, and Malin did a Elvis Presley performance.
Did you do a good Elvis, Malin?
Yeah. And he had the costume and he had the cape and everything, and she would have loved it. And we put all the little toys that she'd knitted them. We just piled those on the coffin. So, you know, it wasn't conventional, but, you know, the funerals, it's weird because I always think making a video of a funeral is a bit of a strange thing. This is what I thought in the past. But I think because I was so grief-stricken at the time, I asked them to video it because I knew I would probably just be in tears. And I wanted to be able to see it afterwards, and I'm so glad that I asked them to video it because I've actually sat and watched it loads of times. And it's been real comfort.
Is it?
Because, you know, there's little things that I wouldn't have remembered at the time. And even that is a way of remembering something, you know, somebody. You know, all the normal things that I suppose I would do, like going to craft classes and meeting, you know, other people that do those sorts of things. It all stopped, you know, didn't it? For everybody.
So now we're back out of lockdown. How's life been, and what's life like?
It's funny because, you know, I see people on the telly that have been really sort of upset that they can't see their family and really stressed out that they can't do what they want. And in a way, like me and my husband say, well, we've sort of felt like we've been in lockdown for a long time. Because we don't go out very often. So it's really, I mean, apart from what happened with my mum, obviously, but it was, we were more trained to live in that way than I think a lot of other people who were used to being able to socialise with their friends and go out and do whatever they like, because our lives are limited anyway. So it's almost like we were trained up to deal with it.
There's a lot of people now don't know how to react to people with masks and things. It's like we've got the inner space, which is us, and then if you go past the 2 meters, that's the outer space where you have like the community, people to see, but your community's got smaller
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like you've got all the friends now, you've got people don't come round, people don't talk so much now, they FaceTime each other, you know, with all these gadgets you've got. To me, a hug, that is all I want, and that is all I have wanted since lockdown, and I still can't do it, and I feel like I've not given my love.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
I do.
But I feel if I did that, then somebody would end up with COVID or whatever, and I don't want that. I want you to all be safe. But it's also me being safe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do, definitely.
I've got friends, they didn't move from their house from April till end of July. They didn't go outside, they didn't, and they weren't got a health problem or anything, they were just so scared of it, and I think I've remained pretty consistently worried, but not so that it stopped me going for a walk with the dog, or I knew that if I touched a gate I should, you know, it'd be sensible to have the hand gel and do my hands, but I didn't think I'm not going to go for a walk in case someone's walking in the opposite direction. I don't know, I hope I took a sensible approach. But it has changed everything. My dad, he said about the war being a massive effect on everyone's lives. He said, but this is totally different, and this is more wide-reaching and an enemy that's not an enemy, because you can't fight it, it's just there. It's definitely changed society and how people think about each other almost, not always in a good way. You are now a threat to me, or, you know, you're somebody to be helped. It just depends on how you view it, doesn't it? But I've enjoyed very much coming back and doing the craft here at Saxon Hall, and it's been, you know, obviously difficult for the hall people to get everything set up so we can do this, and just hopefully it's well, it's the safest way we can do it, and it's important for people to socialise. I think more people are getting ill from being on their own in their own homes than they would be if they got ill from this virus, perhaps. It's unseen, isn't it, if someone's at home, how much they're crying or lonely, or, you know, that no one can see it. They've been in their homes, told to stay there, and it was very difficult for this one friend to actually go out after she'd been in there all that time, and she'd lost some of her hair, gained a stone. Literally, it was, you know, very debilitating. There are positive things. People have been nice to each other and done, you know, neighbours that they've never bothered with. They've noticed that there are older people needing help and shopping. So there's lots of things you can read about positives of human nature from this.
Well, it was difficult as a carver and a producer. I do a lot of shows, and obviously every single show was cancelled from when COVID started to now, really. So for that reason, it was pretty awful to start with. However, I know a lot of people, and I've been doing it a long time, so I did get enough work to see me through. Although the social side of it was pretty bad, because there's a lot of friends I meet at shows and I haven't seen them for a year and a half.
Yeah, lockdown wasn't too bad actually, and I had a conversation, as I do regularly, with other people locally, and I think I feel quite guilty with lockdown in the sense that it hasn't really affected me at all. In fact, I hate to say it, it's been quite beneficial to me personally, being locked down. I mean, I love walking the roads when it first happened with no cars. Certainly the wildlife certainly came back to some of our streets, which was great to see. And so getting out to walk with the dog was wonderful. And also, I'm a designer, a retired designer, and to draw an awful lot. And I picked up the pencil again and started drawing, not for a living anymore, but just drawing. And I did loads of drawing. I got my hand working again, and it was working really well. So I've done a lot of art that I would have never have done. So yeah, it's not been too bad for me, but I'm totally aware of the tsunami of debt that's coming down to people, and people losing their houses and their jobs and things through no fault of their own, and it's an incredibly tough time for some.
I was very lucky. I live in the countryside, so I was surrounded by birdsong, creatures in my garden, and I actually kept myself occupied during lockdown by filming the wildlife in my garden and posting it to YouTube. So if somebody was living in the middle of a city and surrounded by concrete, they could still access the natural world, because birdsong is an amazing thing to help us pick up from stress. So the more people who can get to see that, the better. So I figured at least if they were in the middle of the city, they could press play on their computer and close their eyes and imagine themselves in my garden.
Well, during lockdown, I've been extremely lucky because I've lived in Anglesey, North Wales, and in particular Newborough. So we've got lovely countryside, lovely beaches, and sparsely populated. So it hasn't affected us as much as other people. Yeah. You know, I've not suffered greatly. Financially, a little bit I've suffered because I'm a landlord and people have not been paying me rent. But that's understandable, and there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah. But no, you've got to look at the bigger picture. I think you know we're lucky, very lucky. But I know there's people throughout the UK, throughout the world, are on the other side of it. You know, they've been very unlucky. I've not lost any family or friends. Yeah. So in that way, I could say I'm extremely lucky. I love woodwork, and I've always done woodwork. Yeah. I'm a bit of a crafty person. I've just started doing jewellery making as well. Yes, I enjoyed. I got made redundant 2 years ago now, I think it was, just before the lockdown. In Wales, we have a grant to help you retrain. Right. So I managed to do a Windsor chair making course, or one of them, which was 5 days, and I made a nice Windsor chair. And I've got a gate making course booked in middle of July as well, which is going to enhance my skills, I think. I've got to the age in my life when you re-evaluate everything. I think things mean more to you at this age than when you're younger, I think. I think I agree with that. Yes. You tend to see life as, you know, I've been on the earth longer than I've got left. And you think, you know, that gets a bit scary. It does. So, you know, you tend to slow down and try and do things that you haven't done. It's a big thinking point when you start getting older.
I found that talking to children over in my neighbourhood, the children have been incredibly interesting about this. They're really thoughtful about it, and they know exactly what's going on, and they seem much more, they seem to be coping really well from what I can see. So that was interesting. And then there's been this long gap, and that's actually worked out in lots of different ways. I think before lockdown, we were talking about standing up for peace. That was in many ways a big response to how things have been in the last couple of years in the UK, where there's been a lot of division and quite a lot of frustration, a lot of frustration building up, and people not being too sure what it was okay to talk about anymore, and conversations were getting very tense. And so that was a real response to that, going, hang on a minute now, we've got a big community here. How are we going to get through this? How are we going to keep this community together, with Saxon Hall playing a role in that the way it always has done? And then when lockdown happened, that theme got intensified, and you think, now we've all got time to think about it, and people have had time to really think about what matters to them. A lot of the tensions from last year melted away. They melted away. The same people who couldn't even look at each other without getting annoyed were now checking that you were all right, that you had groceries, and we're looking out for your kids. And there was a lot of stress at the beginning of lockdown. It was incredibly stressful, but people fell back into their natural way of behaving, which was to be kind, to be thoughtful, to be very concerned, to check up on each other, to think of all the things that need doing. I saw my neighbourhood was quite fractured last year, and they had a community project. They could not get together. I don't live around here. I live 2 hours away. So I saw my neighbourhood pull back together. I saw the playground team get back together and form a new committee. All of a sudden they're like, no, we're going to do this for the kids. The kids have been great. They deserve this. All that kind of thing.
And so we come back here now and we're organised, lots of precautions being taken. I feel really good about the way we've done it. I feel like it's safe. I don't feel in danger at all, and I was super paranoid about getting ill. But I got ill a few years ago, and it was like lockdown. Everything happened really suddenly. It was horrible. So it upset me. But now I feel safe here. I feel like everyone's doing the best for me. I'm doing the best for them.
I think, you know, initially it was sort of disbelief, and then there's sort of running around like kind of mad panic, visiting people before lockdown, and rushing and seeing elderly parents that, you know, you didn't think you'd see again, and a very, very weird, tense time. And I think we focused first on that and didn't really necessarily think about, we kind of thought about work and knew everything was shutting down, but we didn't have any control of that. But I think on an emotional side, it was more about making sure that everybody was very safe and having members of the family who were in shielding. And so there was a sort of absolute focus. We have to be safe. We have to take every precaution. And I think I hadn't really felt a level of fear like that, which was very strange. And I think that fear factor has sort of stayed for quite a while. Then it eased off, and I think then when lockdown eased, it came back because we weren't in control. In lockdown, we knew exactly what we had to do. After that easing, it was, oh, well, I'm the only one wearing a mask in Sainsbury's. Why isn't anybody else? I couldn't understand it. But that was fine. That didn't deter me. And then now everybody's wearing a mask. It's like, oh, thank goodness. So in terms of how that affects work, obviously workshops that are my, you know, in my studio ended. Still can't have anybody in. Because the nature of what I'm doing, which is, you know, looking at how people are sewing, and you need to be so close to them, which is why that last, you know, session we had here back, it was so amazing because there were so many people in it. I thought, this is a really great group now. Yeah. And I feel for those people who've suddenly, you know, were able to perhaps find a new skill. Now that's gone, and we're trying our best to find ways of moving forward with that. So the whole focus is on how we rethink everything to do with the skills that we have, how we present them. I've learned how to film and edit, and that's due to Big Skill with all that support, and that's been amazing. And that took me so much out of my comfort zone, I can't tell you. But I've realised that actually perhaps going out of our comfort zone makes us approach things differently, and that's what's needed. So I was kicking back a bit about it, but now I'm thinking, okay, I've learned a new skill, and that's good. My brain is still operating. But I was going to make lots of things. I obviously had all this time. I'd sort out, I'd read every book that I had. I would do lots and lots of artwork. I would be making so many things, and I've not done one book. And I don't know. I just kept looking at the clock. Is it time for a snack?
Yes. Yeah.
The sculpture has changed focus a bit, and I think it's now more intense and more personal in a way. I think people are responding to the things I'm asking them in a way that's very personal and very considered. And I asked a lady about that today, and she was saying, oh, we've had time to think. We've had time to think about what matters to us. And I think a lot of us know what matters to us now. I ran to my notebook, write that down. That's going on the sculpture. We're going to take all these quotes and we're going to write them on there. And it moved me when she said that. I thought, that's exactly right. So I'm very excited about how this is going to go. I think the smaller groups are actually going to be great. I think I'm going to have because we've got lots of time, haven't we? We're running for like 6 months. So I think I'm going to have more time to talk to people one-on-one and to work with people one-on-one. So I'm going to be able to offer them more in exchange for their contributions to the theme of the sculpture and the design of the sculpture. And I think the other groups that are happening while I'm doing that are they're fun, and people are enjoying themselves, and they're relaxing, and they're opening up, and I'm able to pick up on that and write all that down and add that into the sculpture. So this research phase of the sculpture is going to be one of the best I've ever done, because it's going to be slow, it's going to be gentle, and it's going to naturally come to something rather than being what in the past has often been quite a fraught and rushed process of trying to grab everything that's important. Here we're going to get there in a more natural way. It's going to be good.
So lockdown has meant you just being stuck at home then without getting out to do various workshops?
Yeah, that's right.
But you're now going to come along regularly on our Tuesday workshops, are you, to do the various crafts?
Yes.
And do you think you'll get involved with our sculpture workshop, or is it more the craft side you're interested in?
Yes.
More the craft side?
Craft side, yeah.
Okay.
I've been at work the whole time, I haven't stopped. Yeah, I'm actually, now I've had childcare now, my son's gone back to school, he's 6, and my daughter's in nursery. I'm actually now trying to have just me time, because I haven't had it in so long being a mum, and my partner works away, so I don't see him for weeks on end. So I'm actually just sort of enjoying myself, and doing this today, coming to make, you know, sculptures out of clay is probably the best therapeutic thing I've done since the whole lockdown. It's something I needed, it really was.
The next thing on the list, hope to go and see my dad in Wales, because they were on lockdown. I couldn't have gone anyway if I was well enough, but things are opening up again now. So I'll go and see my dad, and I'll go and see my brother in Devon, and get back to work hopefully. That would be my plan for next year, just to get back to normal, well, the new normal.
What have you been doing to keep yourself busy, Margaret?
Well, you'll probably laugh. I made a new design jumper out of Oddminster wool. I mean, I've heard of the coat of many colours, but this is the jumper of many colours, believe me. I've also kept in touch with friends and swapped knitting patterns, and I've been busy making babies' hats and bonnets for newborn, thinking of Christmas time. And I've been able to meet up with 4 friends in one another's garden. To sit, you know, social distancing, taking our knitting and having a coffee and a cake, which has been nice to contact one another. Being as this virus has kept us home, because I've been on chilled in because of my illness, and I went from January, from when I had my op, right through till June. So it was good that we still had the telephone so people could speak to you, and also have voice chat, is it? Video chat? Which has been a great help, especially being on my own. Yeah, I had some of my photographs I made into cards, and and I was asked by a few friends, well, we can't get to the shops to buy any cards, so I've covered myself on course and shared those, which has been quite nice.
So that's been great, doing the tutorials online, Big Skill, but now we're sort of approaching that time where we're having to get back together again in this very weird sort of distanced way. Your mindset is again kind of like worrying about, you know, have I disinfected that enough? Have I left that long enough before I take that to give to somebody? And the process of just basically being able to do something very simple has got so many tasks attached to it. Coming back into Saxon Hall, I think it's knowing that you're supported in what you're doing makes a big difference. I think if you're so totally on your own with this, it's overwhelming. But I think because we're all sort of, you know, following the guidelines as best we can, we just have to go with that and just do what we can.
I don't feel quite as anxious as I did at the beginning, because I think people have started to adapt, and we've started to adapt. And we've made online links, which perhaps we hadn't before. People are trying, you know, sort of like grannies are trying out Zoom, whereas perhaps they wouldn't have gone near their internet before, you know. And so people are connecting more. And these sorts of workshops where people can can find out about it online or come in person in a safe place are seeming to be quite crucial, because that community and connection people lost for a while over lockdown.
Yes.
And so I think people are quite keen to maintain it or to regain it as well if they've lost it already. So I'm feeling a bit more positive for me and for our communities that we spend a lot of time with, really. I think people might have started to realise how important creativity is, whereas before they might have taken it for granted.
Excellent.
Yeah.